Hello and welcome to the Wealth Beyond Riches podcast with your host, Abbey Henderson, where we talk about enriching your life in every way. I'm Wendy McConnell. Hi, Abbey. How are you?
I'm good, Wendy. How are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited. Today, we're going to be talking about aging, but doing it in a healthy way.
Yes, healthy, intentional, proactive, and then what to do if you didn't do it that way.
Oh, no. Okay, yeah. So, there's things that you can do to correct it if you're a little off course.
We'll talk about that.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. So let's talk about it. We have a guest today, right?
We do. And I am so excited to introduce everyone today to Sam Van Kalkeren. Sam has been working as a psychiatric registered nurse since 2012. He's a certified Alzheimer's disease and dementia care trainer, a certified dementia practitioner. He previously has been a patient care director at Kearney Hospital, as well as a clinical nurse director at Tufts Medical Center. And currently, he is director of aging services at O'Connor Professional Group. And as a side note, which is very important to me and Wendy and our listeners, he's a dog person.
Yes.
The most important piece
Right?
of information is the dog person, yes.
Yeah, we love our dogs. We love all dogs.
Totally. Oh, yes.
So
Yeah.
Welcome, Sam. We're really excited to have you here. I'm super curious. How has your journey in healthcare unfolded, and how did you decide to specialize in these areas?
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. It's so exciting to be here. My healthcare journey started off when I graduated nursing school. I started working with kids in a psychiatric setting. And I like to think that my nursing career kind of grew with my patients, and the trajectory of my career did as well. Because obviously now I'm working with older adults and seniors. But through that journey, I was working with kids, then started working with adults, and then older adults and seniors. But personally, I'm all about healthy aging, being proactive. And what does that mean? I think that our healthcare system in America is broken in that we automatically think that there's a pill to cure everything, where, it's kind of that tertiary approach where we need to be proactive and take the primary approach. And so, exercise and diet, and I know we'll get all into that later. But I love working with older adults and seniors and supporting those individuals and helping them identify things that they can do to improve their quality of life, to make it easier for them, because they deserve that. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. So as you sort of alluded to, in an ideal world, we are all thinking about this ahead of time. So let's start with, what can we all be doing to proactively age well?
Yeah, well, the answer lies in the question is proactive. And we all know, a healthy diet, and the diet includes like a Mediterranean diet or a whole food plant-based diet. There's been tons of studies coming out now about how the body is able to heal itself with the proper nutrition. But then also, being active, doing exercise, maintaining your mobility is super important, and your strength. And getting enough sleep is also important. But beyond all that, that's kind of what we know. You need to prioritize your health. So going to medical appointments, going to doctors, even though, we just said that doctors sometimes just want to prescribe a pill, but find one that works for you and your lifestyle. But also, as you're aging, you want to maintain your autonomy, and maintain your agency. So this is being proactive in that process. So, think about, what would my self now tell my older self later if I were to get dementia, or if I were to get a terminal illness? What does that look like for me, and what do I want out of my life? And let your wishes known to your family. And if someone does have a diagnosis of some form of dementia, they can still have their autonomy. So you make your choices now for your future self, and that way you've already decided what you want done, and that's supporting your autonomy. Also, it's important to have a growth mindset, learning new hobbies, learning a new language or new skills. What we now know is that the brain is elastic. It can still continue to grow and build those neurosynapses, and you can learn new skills. We used to think that, once you reach a certain age, that was it. That's all you're going to get. But research shows now that you can continue to build those neurosynapses and make those neural connections. But you also need to be doing stuff to challenge yourself. So again, learning a new language. If you're sitting down to do Sudoku or that puzzle, it's great, it's good, but your brain's going to learn, okay, this is what I do here, this is what I do there. So you figure out the pattern. So you need to continue pushing yourself. And I think putting yourself in uncomfortable situations so you continue to grow, because a lot of times our experiences as we age shrink just because we get uncomfortable. But being uncomfortable allows you to grow. And then finally, you want to maintain drive and maintain purpose, because what we see a lot is when someone retires, their job has been their purpose. It's what gets them up every day out of bed. And when they retire, they don't have that anymore. And what's not uncommon, we see, if someone maybe had their 5 o'clock cocktail happy hour, it becomes 2 o'clock, 1 o'clock, earlier and earlier, because it's just like habits. But you've got to find some drive, some purpose to keep you going, and being engaged in your surrounding, in your community. So, for example, volunteering at a dog shelter or an animal shelter would be a great way if you like animals. Volunteering at your church if you're religious, or at a school, something that keeps you engaged with friends. Now, I love the example of the Golden Girls. I'm sure many people are familiar with the Golden Girls. They had their community, and they had each other to support themselves, and they were living their best lives. So that's it. And then also being proactive about the things we don't like to think about. So like a lot of people don't like to think about their death or like decline, and you'll know this from your line of work, that you've got to have all your legal documents in order and have a plan. So it's your healthcare proxy, it's your power of attorney, having a living will, but the living will, it's different state by state. So I know for listeners in Massachusetts, really it's your power of attorney that makes those decisions for you. So it's important that your power of attorney and your healthcare proxy know what your wishes are. We've seen it several times where clients have identified a healthcare proxy and a power of attorney, something happens, and the person that they selected had no idea that they were even selected to carry out the person's wishes. So you got to communicate that to the person. And then obviously having a will, and then if it's appropriate, a revocable, irrevocable trust, depending on the situation. But again, making sure people know your wishes. And I tell people, have those conversations, have those uncomfortable conversations. And I like to make a yearly tradition. I heard a story one time where the father, it was a traditional family, a father, mother, 2 children. And the father every year at Thanksgiving would tell, okay, when I'm this age, I want this to happen. If this happens, I want this to be done. And he did that throughout the years and continued. And then it became a family joke. Okay, now it's time for dad to tell us what he wants, even though we already know it. But then when he actually had his health decline and things did happen, the family knew how to respond exactly what he wanted, and they didn't have to question or wonder what to do.
Yeah, I love that. So I've had some conversations in my family about this, and my suggestion was, well, we should all talk about like what we want to happen. My sister, who's 45, I'm 50, like, let's not make it all about our parents. Like, we should go through this too. And we can even kind of, I mean, you don't want to take it too lightly, but like, it's kind of, some things can be kind of funny if, and just make it a little bit lighter, but you still get the job done, that the conversation's been had.
100%. And kind of to your point, you normalize the conversation and everyone takes part in it, because you're never too young to have that in place to plan it. Because we never know what's going to happen. So,
yeah, my sister's so funny. She is like, keep me on life support forever. So like, you can kind of laugh about it, even though it's not completely a funny thing, but
well, exactly. Well, it's that point too, and making people know what your wishes are. So I recently went on a trip, my husband and I did, and we have everything in place. And so my sister, though, she watches our dogs, and if something happens to us, she gets the dogs. She's going to take care of them, and we have a plan for them. But then it's like, well, she needs to know who to contact, because like, so then we're like, well, here's the number of the person to contact, and she's like, well, do I need to contact them? It's like, well, if we die, you do. Like, you just you make light of it, and just you got to have fun. Yeah,
definitely. So let's say we have managed to avoid this topic, and we're no longer so much in the proactive category. Thinking about either our partners or maybe our parents, what sort of things should we be looking for? When should we be concerned? Give us some guidance around that.
Yeah. So what we were just talking about was being proactive, and now talking about avoidance. Avoidance is more common than not. More people have avoided the topic than being proactive. So if you're in that category, you're okay. You're not alone. Because again, no one wants to talk about their potential death or demise. But the things to consider are, so memory loss. Memory loss is not a normal part of aging. Just like falls are not a normal part of aging. Many people that I've worked with, they just figure, okay, I'm going to get old. I fell. That's normal, but it's not. And then what happens with falls is that a person has their first fall. It's scary. Then they think, okay, I'm going to fall again, so I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to exercise, or I'm going to stay at home and live my life, really. But actually, if a person does that, they're going to increase their risk of falls exponentially, and they're going to fall again and again, and then they're going to get weak because they're not working out. And then they have a fall that could, break a hip, and it snowballs from there.
Yeah, statistics on falls are not good.
Yeah, no.
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, and I've seen some pretty nasty falls, especially working in the hospital. People trying to get out of bed, and there are people at home falling, and but it's a classic where they have one fall and then they stop exercising, and that and they're still have throw rungs on the ground at their home and tripping hazards all over the place. And so you just really need to be holistic in your approach in supporting the individual. And then also, when we think about older adults, the surprising statistic is 58% of individuals 65 and older believe that depression is a normal part of aging.
Wow.
And it's low. And it's a sad statistic that people think that is. And even providers, PCPs, the primary care physicians, think that as well. Think that it's a normal part of aging. Obviously not all do, but many people, depression is the most underdiagnosed and undertreated illness in older adults. It's because that obviously things happen as we age. We lose our partner, chronic illness, other things can happen. Just life in general can be hard. And so many providers and individuals think that their depression is just a side effect of what's going on in their life, where actually it is a true diagnosis of depression. So they don't really talk about it, and they just kind of glance over it. So if you're experiencing those symptoms, it's important to get treatment. But also, if you are concerned about a loved one, or you're suspecting some kind of memory loss or something's going on, you've got to take time and you've got to investigate. You can't just jump to the person and say, you're losing your memory, or this is happening, like you need to get checked out. And you've really got to, it's a very sensitive topic, and it's hard for the person who may be experiencing the memory loss to hear. So you've got to be sensitive in the way that you raise that. But there are 6 red flag safety concerns to be aware of. So, beyond, some memory loss or some trouble with finances, getting lost in direction or getting confused, like that's scary, but it's something, I need to act on this right now. The things that you need to take action on immediately is repeated car accidents. So I will tell adult children who have parents who live far away, and maybe they're going home for the holidays, look at their car. Is there extra scratches or dings? And are there extra car, like speeding tickets or things like that? Because, vision is impaired if we have some certain dementias. It affects people differently. Repeated ER visits, because there could be some medical things happening. Actual financial loss. And we know that financial scams are huge among older adults. and I bet you see this a lot too, and AI, artificial intelligence now, we're learning that, scammers mimic the voices of loved ones and family members and say, I need this money or that. And so
it's terrible.
So if there's, yeah, it's awful. It just, we just had a client, going on sign on for services this past week, and over the course of 6 years has been the victim of many financial scams. And she's just so giving to others. The sad thing is that she's just not giving of herself she wants to help others. But people take advantage of that too.
One of the things that I actually do to try to avoid scams is in my family, we've come up with a code word. So if I ever get a phone call from somebody that sounds like my husband and I'm talking to him and if I say, what's the code word? And they don't know it, I know it's not my husband.
Oh, that's really smart.
So smart.
Yeah.
Exactly. It is doing these little things and putting these little things in place. It can help so much. But then incidents involving the stove, because obviously it's a safety hazard. You could start a fire. So also, if you're going to visit a loved one, you can check the pots and the pans when the person's not looking. Like check the bottom of them to see if there's bird marks on them, because that can be an indicator. That incidents involving firearms. I know this is a hot topic in gun rights, but there was a situation in, I believe, South Carolina. A colleague of mine who's a dementia practitioner was working with a family, and they thought that all the firearms had been locked away and were the ammunition taken out, and they're still there, but everything was locked up. There was one that wasn't, and this older adult with Alzheimer's was paranoid and thought people were trying to break into his home, and this was in the middle of the day. And so he had his gun to protect his home. He went out on the porch and he was waving around the gun, and the neighbors called the police, and then the police showed up. They had no idea that this person had Alzheimer's. All they saw was a person waving around the gun, and they ended up shooting him, and he passed away. He was killed. So it's just, so firearms, you just make sure that they're locked up. And then signs of elder abuse. So again, this is financial scams. And then if you have a caregiver taking care of someone, and you notice that your loved one is timid or their behavior changes when the caregiver is around, that could be a sign of some form of abuse. So those are the 6 red flag safety concerns that when you need to take action.
And so do you have any tips, say that you have noticed one of those, or you've just seen enough repetition that you've decided now's the moment I want to have a conversation with a loved one? Do you have any tips for how to have that conversation?
Yeah. So the first thing to remember is it's a long process. You've got to take time. You've got to really investigate the situation and what you think you're saying, really just kind of gathering that information. But when you're ready to have the conversation, you want to approach it with empathy, care, and patience. And so choose the right setting. So obviously, if you notice something's wrong, you've gathered some evidence, you have like some hard facts. You don't want to have a conversation at the Thanksgiving dinner table with the whole family around. You're going to put that person on the spot. It's best when you have that conversation, to do it privately. And I can say do it one-on-one, because if there's 3 adult children, or it's a spouse and the children, or whatever the situation is, one-on-one is best, because if you have 3 people, 4 people, even 2 people to the one person, they might feel ganged up on. And so they're going to kind of be resistant. And then you've got to ask yourself, am I the appropriate person to have this conversation? Because, if, again, the example of the adult child, if I were to go to my mom and be like, Mom, I'm noticing these issues and I'm concerned, and this is what my concerns are, what I'm seeing, she's my mom. She changed my diapers. And, we hear the term parent to parent. They're not going to want to listen to you. I was recently at a conference, an Aging Life Care Association conference. It's for geriatric care managers. It was about reframing your thoughts on aging, because we have a youth-obsessed culture. But it was interesting because, when people decide to have kids, they've never had kids before, but they think, oh, this is a good idea, I'm going to have kids. And they just naturally have kids. But as we age, we learn these experiences. But then it's like there's a shift at some point where adults think, okay, I can age these older adults. We haven't lived that the older adults are the ones that have lived that. So we need to take advice from them and hear from them and hear their perspectives and celebrate that and listen to what's important to them, what their needs are. But going back to having these conversations, so if you are the one to have the conversation, or you can engage in someone with authority, so like a lawyer, a financial advisor that they're close to, a doctor that they respect or that they're really close to, and let them know your concerns, see if they have noticed anything and if they'll be involved in that conversation. But you want to listen actively to the person, listen to their concerns, make it a warm environment for them, and kind of develop a plan, but know that it's not going to happen overnight and it may take multiple attempts. And you may just be able to crack the ice a bit or not break the ice at all, but you got to just keep continuing. And again, look out for those red flag safety concerns.
So you've had the conversation, or you've at least started that. Just to sort of set expectations, like what does it look like for this process to typically unfold if you get past those initial conversations?
Yeah. So, well, first, it's important that everyone's on the same page. So if there are multiple people involved, like a big family, or maybe it's just some siblings, everyone's got to be on that same page and not wanting different things. And we've had, it's not uncommon at all to have the adult children with different perspectives. So we had a client where the mom had Alzheimer's, the father had congestive heart failure. They were living at home. Father was the primary caretaker, and the three adult children all wanted something different for their parents. And then their parents were resistant because it wasn't a one unified message, and their voices weren't being heard. So I tell people, you need to promote that person's autonomy and their agency and let them be involved in the decision making. And if the wishes or the need is to move to a senior living community or assisted living community, you don't want to pull the rug out from the person to say that you're going there, because it's traumatic. And there's such a thing called transfer trauma, relocation stress. This person's lived in their home for so long, and they're surrounded by their things, and now having to move to another environment, and which is most likely their last place that they're going to be. You want them involved in that decision, even if they're fully further along in the disease process of a dementia. Keep them involved. And I educate families. You've got to learn how to communicate with your loved one if they suffer from a form of dementia. And I keep saying a form of dementia because dementia is a term of symptoms. It's like an umbrella term. So you've got Alzheimer's, which is a disease, Parkinson's, that all falls under dementia. But dementia are the symptoms. But learn how to communicate with the loved one. I think the difficult part for many people is we use the term fiblets, and it's kind of like therapeutic truths. So you're not really lying to the person, but you're living their reality and you're meeting them where they're at. The perfect example, and this is what many people have struggles with, is that say you have an older adult who has Alzheimer's disease that has progressed, and they think that their husband or their spouse or partner is still living, but they passed away 5-6 years ago. And so they're going to be asking, where's my spouse? Mm-hmm. As a caregiver, the family member, if you say, oh, they passed away 5 years ago, you're going to cause that trauma for that individual over and over. And you're just going to have to wait until they kind of move on to the next topic, or to the next day. And then they'll come back and ask for their spouse. The best thing to do is, they're out. If the person likes to golf or they like to play pickleball, they're out play pickleball. They'll be back home shortly, or they're running some errands. They'll be back shortly. So you're living their truth because that's what they truly believe. You got to think about dementia as brain failure, and the brain is just not working correctly. So, and they're not going to change, but the family has to adapt. I think I gave you a long answer for all that, but I apologize.
No, that's perfect. So last question, mostly last question for you. Tell us a little bit about what resources are available, and specifically the O'Connor Professional Group, because I think what you guys do is special in the space.
It's great to know what resources are out there. Mm-hmm. Just to have support and guidance. So we have the Aging Life Care Aging Life Care Association, known for ALCA for short. It's a organization of geriatric certified care managers. They can kind of help navigate this landscape. It's what we do at O'Connor Professional Group as well. But also knowing, financial advisors out there who can help navigate that landscape, money managers, agencies on aging. So many towns will have this agency on aging that can help connect with local resources. But at O'Connor Professional Group, so we are a concierge health firm. Our focus has primarily been in behavioral health, but now we are working with older adults and seniors. Either it's if they want to be proactive in their aging, if they maybe there's an illness that's happening, we can come in and do a consultation assessment and make recommendations on what's needed. Or we can provide that care management service where we're that quarterback of care, coordinate appointments, arrange transportation, create a care plan, identify short-term needs and long-term needs, and kind of how do we meet those needs and the goals. But we have a whole team of different clinicians. We have registered nurses, social workers, occupational therapists, psychologists, neuropsychologists. We have a vast network of people that we can pull from. And our website is www.oconnorpg.com. It's OCONNORPG.com. And then, if people want to reach out via email to me or there's a question, that's totally fine too. It's S Van Kalkeren, so it's hard. It's VANKALKEREN at oconnorpg.com. But yeah, there's a bunch of resources available, and we always we're the business of helping and supporting others. So if someone has a question about something and we're not the right resource, we will guide you to the right resource or try to connect you with someone that we know that can help you.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for joining us today. I think this is such an important topic, and hopefully we have inspired people to get ahead of the curve, but they also know what to do if they're at the top of the curve or even a little bit behind it. So thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. This is wonderful. It's great to get that message out there.
Such great information. So thank you for listening in with us today. Please like, follow, and share this podcast with your friends. Abby, how do we get in touch with you?
All the ways. LinkedIn, email, Abby@abarisfinancialgroup.com. Also on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And we'll have all the links in the show notes.
All right. Sounds great. All right. I'm Wendy McConnell. Until next time, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for listening to the Wealth Beyond Riches podcast. Be sure to visit our website at www.abarisfinancialgroup.com. And don't forget to click the follow button to be notified when new episodes become available. The opinions voiced in Wealth Beyond Riches with Abbey Henderson are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine what may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, financial or tax advisor prior to investing. Guests on Wealth Beyond Riches are not affiliated with CWM LLC. Investment advisory services offered through CWM LLC, an SEC registered investment advisor.